Box office top 10 then, at 26, Tish.
Which I think is a really interesting documentary. If you're interested in photography, if you're interested in social realism, if you're interested in the way in which photography can change people's view of the world, Tish is really worth seeing.
Number 12 is May, December. That's rather low.
Well, because I think primarily it'll be seen on streaming services. I really like that film. We had Todd Haynes as your guest on last week's show, and he did an absolutely brilliant interview. I think there are great performances. I think the thing that you need to say about May, December is you keep reminding yourself, whilst just getting on with it and watching it and enjoying it, just how shocking the central subject matter is, and just how deftly Todd Haynes manages to work round that. You keep having to remind yourself, oh, hang on, this is what this is about.
When I left the film, that was one of the reasons why I felt a little bit disconcerted.
Yes.
Precisely for that
very
reason.
You're meant to feel like that. You're meant to feel like that.
Number 10 in the UK, Paw Patrol, the mighty movie.
Well, he's not going to be that much of a pauper, is he, that troll, because that film's done very well and taken an absolute ton of money.
Oh, I beg your pardon. So I should have contributed this from DJ on our YouTube channel just about May, December. Sorry, I just missed this.
Oh, right, fine.
Let me just say that Charles Melton completely stole the movie, in my opinion. I felt so bad for his character. One of, if not my definite favourite movie of the year.
So he plays the grown young man now with Julianne Moore's character, and their relationship began. It wasn't a relationship. She assaulted him when he was a 13-year-old, and then she had his child, and now they are still together. And that's why the subject matter is so dark, because when you meet them, they appear to have a functioning grown-up relationship, but then you discover that actually it began as a case of child rape.
And so, again, back to that feeling of
discomfort.
Discomfort, because you go, right, so are you saying it's all right then? Because clearly it's not.
Yes.
So, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it handles those really complex subject matter very deftly.
Number 9 in the UK, number 16 in the States, Anatomy of a Fall.
I can't recommend this highly enough. Go and see it. You'll be gripped for every moment that you're in the cinema. We had an email a while ago from somebody asking, this was on questions, how do I stop worrying, my mind, wandering while I'm in the cinema? The answer is go and see Anatomy of a Fall. When you're watching Anatomy of a Fall, all you will think about is the movie. It's so brilliant.
Number 8 in the UK, number 5 in the States, Five Nights at Freddy's.
It's done a lot better than I thought. I still think it's, I still think it's nothing like as interesting as it could be. As I said, there is a kind of much lower rent Nick Cage, Don't Call Me Nick Cave version, which I kind of preferred. But it has done better than I thought it was going to, which once again goes to demonstrate critics don't know nothing.
Number 7 here, number 10 in the States, Killers of the Flower Moon.
I had a discussion with a very famous movie producer just the other day. And they said two things. One of them was that their feeling was, as mine was, that the film was edited for streaming services, in as much as it's built at a length which is ideal for streaming services rather than a length which is ideal for its cinema release. And the other point was that independent film is suffering very much at the moment because streaming services taking up cinema space. And if you have very, very long films from streaming services, of which we have many, it takes up even more space, and it's harder and harder and harder for independent films to find a space. And they were talking about the possibility of streaming services being levied in some way. Now, I don't know what the practicality of that would be, but it's just interesting that people are now saying streaming services ought to pay a levy to cinemas because of the effect they are having.
More on that anon. UK number 6, number 4 in the States is Thanksgiving.
Well, Eli Roth tackles the subject of Thanksgiving and Black Friday all in one movie, which is basically expanded from a trailer from the Grindhouse project, which was however long ago it was. I wasn't entirely sure that we needed the Eli Roth trailer. I'm absolutely certain that we didn't need the Eli Roth feature of the trailer.
And number 5 here, 2 in the States, Trolls Band Together.
Doing better than the Paw Patrols.
And number 4 here, 13 in the States, is Saltburn. Phil Hobden.
Yes.
This could well be one of my favourite films of the year, a brutal, cutting, dark and twisted film that offers more scares than most of this year's teen horror films combined. I could go on, but honestly, the least you know about this, the better. other than it's a truly must-see. Loved it, and it stayed with me for many days after. Oh, and it might have one of my favourite last scenes in a film ever. Phil Edwards says, Dear Genesis and Revelation, I saw a preview screening of Saltburn a month ago, and I'm still thinking about it. It's an odd film, a thoughtful piece of filmmaking which has very little to say. The cinematic and literary echoes are endless, as well as those you mentioned. I'd cite The Little Stranger, great novel, so-so film, and in particular Titus Groan, Mervyn Peake's fantasy about a timeless aristocratic family corrupted and undermined from within. The structure of the film is smart too and reminded me of Promising Young Woman. Both films drop heavy hints that they're heading in one of two directions and end up going for both of them. But the comparison with Fennell's earlier film doesn't do Saltburn any favours. It was never in any doubt what Promising Young Woman was about. By contrast, Saltburn looks to me like, quote, the director of that feminist film tackles the class system. And all that Emerald Fennell has to say about the class system is that extremely rich and privileged people are often insular and rude, which didn't strike me as a revelation. Incidentally, I studied English at Cambridge, and new students were indeed sent a 3-page reading list with the King James Bible near the top of page 1. Unlike Oliver, I didn't read the lot, but I did start at the top of the list and work my way down, so I can honestly say I've read the Bible from cover to cover. Really? If they didn't want us to, they shouldn't have put it on the list. Not that I'm bitter or anything. Pax Vobiscum, Phil Edwards. I would be really interested to know if anyone else was given the King James Bible on a reading list and actually read the whole thing.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
Anyway, so two contrasting views of Saltburn.
Well, oddly enough, I did an on-stage thing with Emerald Fennell earlier on this week at the BFI South Bank, and I reminded her of your comment that, hello, Emerald, I hated everyone in your film.
That wasn't quite how it
went. No,
I
know, but it was. But you said yourself that
I went too early on the I hated.
No, you didn't go too early. She thought it was absolutely right because, you're not meant to sort of sympathise with and love these people. You're meant to find them, perversely fascinating. But she directly addressed the question of, after Promising Young Woman, people thought about her as that political filmmaker. And that isn't who she is. I mean, she made something which appeared to be very clearly polemical. Saltburn isn't. And I don't think I don't think that she should be, asked to make the same kind of film more than once. I think actually, as a work of cinema, Saltburn is a better film. I think it's more rounded. I think it's richer. I think the message of Promising Young Woman is much clearer. But it's the old adage. You want to use a message. If you want to send a message, use Western Union. It's. I think as a piece of cinema, it is a really enjoyable romp. And that's the message. The message is it's really enjoyable.
I would still come down on the side of Promising Young Woman.
No, that's fine. I mean, that's perfectly, obviously it's perfectly fine to still prefer the other film. But I don't think it's right to say, well, look, we all knew what Promising Young Woman was saying, and this isn't saying very much. I think it's more complicated than that.
Tiger 3 is at number 3.
That is a film which hasn't been press screened, but it is Indian Hindi language action thriller by Manish Sharma. And if anyone's seen it, let us know. It's gone straight in, done very, very well, but wasn't press screened.
Correspondence at KermodeandMayo.com. Number 2 here, number 3 in the States is The Marvels. Daniel O'Donnell,
yes. Okay.
But not that one.
Okay.
My son and I have just returned from the cinema after watching the latest installment of the MCU and both had a great time. The movie is a mess, but it's a fun, good-natured mess with all 3 leads put in charismatic performances. Neither of us are huge Marvel fans, but still managed to enjoy it immensely. However, what has bothered me, and probably shouldn't by now, is the usual plethora of quotes from people who should know better, regurgitating the line from a few years back that MCU is the death of cinema. I even read a piece the other day saying it wasn't just the MCU, but franchises in general that were killing cinema. People seem to easily forget that these large tentpole movies bring in the punters that are needed to keep the lights on. You don't have to like them, but at least appreciate that without them, there would be a lot fewer cinemas to go to. Thank you, Daniel O'Donnell. Not that one.
Tentpole releasing is an interesting thing. It's what's the other phrase that a rising tide raises all ships. Okay, so tentpole releasing. Certainly, if you know people who run cinemas, and I do, if you ever have a big blockbuster movie that underperforms, their heart sinks because those are the things that keep the cinemas afloat. However, there is a conversation to be had about what the relationship between tentpole releasing and independent cinema is. And again, I refer you to the previous thing I was talking about, which is to do with the possibility of there being some kind of levy on streaming services and cinema. Nobody likes it when a big movie fails, least of all cinemas. Marvel's has done, or it went in at number one last week. Although it's the softest MCU opening. As I said when I reviewed it, I took no pleasure in saying that I didn't think it was any good, but I did think if somebody sees it and enjoys it, good. I haven't seen the plethora of quotes about saying it's the end of cinema. Of course, it's not the end of cinema. It's a foolhardy thing to say, and I don't know who said it or in what context. I wish that The Marvels was a better film.
Number one here, number one in the States, Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Lucas McQueen in Edinburgh. Rachel Zegler is the true star of the film. Her presence here, as it was in West Side Story, is captivating. The scenes in which she sings live are standouts. I did find moments of genuine intensity within the games. These were well complemented by blips of levity from Jason Schwartzman's character of Lucky, who had my cinema bursting out into quite raucous laughter, though the fact that it was 10:30 on a Friday night might have actually embellished this. I was invested in the story and the chemistry between the two young lovers. I would be interested in hearing Mark's further thoughts about the third act of the film, and then goes into some detail there, which we probably can't do.
Yep.
Peter in Atherton. The good lady here indoors took the teenagers to see The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes at the weekend. And my 14-year-old daughter has insisted that I email you with her thoughts.
Yes, go ahead, please.
She was not at all happy to hear of Mark's mid-review and instead felt the film was, quotes, amazing with 10 Gs.
Okay.
And is now in her top 3 films. She did concede that it was a bit violent for a 12A, but it was super exciting.
Okay.
So you have it, some brief thoughts from someone who is possibly the target audience. Never mind that she wasn't even born when the first book was released. I have no opinion to share myself. I stayed at home and made the Christmas cake. I'll let you know how good that is in a month or so. Thank you, Peter. So Hunger Games number one.
Well, I mean, I am delighted that it's had that response from its target audience.
Yes.
That's absolutely fantastic. And the reason that the film series exists is because that enthusiasm for that world that was created so effectively by Suzanne Collins in the original Hunger Games is still out there. And that's great. Personally, and I'm sorry, I'm an old man, but I have seen all the Hunger Games movies, and I didn't feel that I needed it in my life. But then as Sherry Lansing famously said to me after I explained to her what was wrong with Titanic, she said, "You know what your problem is? You're not a 14-year-old girl."
And here is quite specifically a
Somebody
14-year-old girl who's gone to the cinema and had a great time and will go back.
Exactly.
And wasn't born when the first book came out.
Exactly. So in that case, that is nothing other than utterly valid and hooray. I'm really glad you liked it that much.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's Take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.